On to the Mathematics Public Health Next Generation seminar, and I'm going to hand you over to our lead, Dr. Jumi David, who will introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nayani. You're all welcome to another seminar, and we have our next generation member, Dr. Pengfei Sang, who received his PhD in mathematics from Jiaotong University in China. And during his PhD, he visited in 2017 and currently working with Professor Jiahong Hu as a postdoctoral fellow at York University. Dr. Sang's research includes Dr. Sang's research interests include multi-scale modeling of complex biology phenomena, couple of deep learning and differential equations, and spatial, temporal, host, and network heterogeneity on the spread of infectious disease. Let us welcome Dr. Sang to present his research on coupling of transmission models and deep learning techniques. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for Jumi's introduction. Okay, I share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. My name is Pengfei Song, and a postdoc of Professor Jianhong Wu. And today I'm going to talk about the couple of transmission models and the deep learning techniques. Brief introduction. It's the serious work supervised by Professor Jianhong Wu and also joint work with Professor Xiao Yanyi and Yin Shuangshuang. Today, my talk will be divided into 4 parts. The first part, I will introduce some background, include the neural network, at least to know. And the second part, I will introduce universal differential equations, which embed the neural networks into a differential equation. And for the third part, I will give 3 applications, including estimating time value reproduction number, and learning unknown human behavior changing mechanisms, and solve the optimal control problems. And for the last part, I will give some insights why a couple of differential equation and deep learning works. Epigenetic models have proved to be a very powerful tool in guiding public health measures, learning from the past and preparing for the future. And also, this modeling and controlling the emerging infection disease such as COVID-19 remains a challenge due to the unknown mechanisms in transmission dynamics. The unknown mechanisms, it means that human has no knowledge about it. For example, the non-standard incidence rate, the changing human mobility pattern, or the shifting contact matches, or evolution of virus. In this talk, I will introduce some answers from deep learning methods to handle the unknown mechanisms. To start with, I want to introduce the neural networks, please to know. The neural network is the composition of functions. Often it includes the tensor products and activation functions. For this, at this time, you can just regard the neural network as just a composition of operators. It's special functions with some input and output. Here, any abstract operator can be a layer, such as a solution map of partial differential equations. If one are interested in, they can see more in the NIPS 2020 tutorial, deep implicit layers. And the 3 sentences I think is very important about the neural networks. The first sentence is that neural networks are universal approximators. It means that it can approximate unknown mappings and their derivatives. In my view, I just think regard it as a special kind of Taylor expansion. Moreover, it can also approximate unknown nonlinear operators in Banach space, such as elliptic and non-local diffusion. For this area, the neural networks are often called as neural operators. It's a very hot topic in recent 2 years. We all know Taylor expansion, and we also know many universal approximators, such as polynomial spaces, Fourier expansion, or Chebyshev expansion, or decision trees, or some non-parametric kernel methods like supporting vector machine or Gaussian process. So why we should use neural networks? Because many universal approximators often face the curse of dimensionality. A neural network can overcome the curse of dimensionality and share breadth of dimensionality. It is a practice finding and with few theoretical results. And the second sentence I think is very important is that it's about the learning ability of the neural networks. It says that a local minimum is enough, and a global minimum often leads to overfitting. It's the belief under theoretically exploring. In a recent work, it also theoretically proved some surprising results under certain conditions. It says that every local minimum is a global minimum. Every critical point that is not a global minimum is a set point. There exist bad set points for the deep neural networks, whereas there's no bad set point for the shallow neural networks. Okay, let's. Deep neural networks can easily find it says that the deep neural networks can easily find a good solution or surrogates, and the surrogate doesn't need to be unique. It's very important, which it is a selectively ensures that the neural networks have a very powerful learning ability. And DNN has unreasonable and counterintuitive effectiveness, which helps to overcome curse of dimensionality and share breadth of dimensionality. To explain the learning ability, I use this example. First, I generated some data from a neural network, and change the data from a neural network with the same architecture. They have different parameters, but another neural networks fit the data well and also predict well. In the right graph, I also generate data from a neural network and use another neural network with different architecture to learn the data generated by this neural network. It also fit well and generalize well. The above mentioned two sentences are all advantages of neural networks, but the third sentence is about the disadvantage of the neural network. It feeds on big data, difficult to interpret, and it has weak generalization. It means that if we directly use the neural networks in epidemiology, it often won't work. It means that it often won't predict well. Also, training DNN by big data is an effective but an unwise way. It costs a lot of resources, which does a lot harm to ours. AlphaGo in 2016 cost about $35 million. But in 2018 has 0.3 billion parameters, and GPT-3 in 2020 has 175 billion parameters. And in last year, Megatron Turing has 530 billion parameters. We will say it is AI, but not human intelligence. we all know that Newton's law is very simple. We say it is science. Lorentz system is also simple. We say it's science. SR model in epidemiology, we also say is science. But for neural networks, it's complex and it is a black box. Black box. We don't know what is in it. Researchers hate and love deep neural network. So the art of a good deep learning architecture is incorporating knowledge, joining AI and human intelligence together. Universal differential equations is one way. Now I will introduce the new universal differential equations. Universal differential equations are initial value problems with the following forms. It's kind of differential equations where F is a non-mechanism model and NN denotes the missing or unknown terms represented by a neural network. θ1 and θ2 are parameters of non-mechanisms and neural networks respectively, which can be estimated simultaneously. Here, the universal means universal approximators. UDs was proposed by Professor Chris Lackcockers in 2020, and a crazy fan of Chris Lackcockers. I love him. Okay, to better understand UDs, I give the following simple epidemiological model to investigate the non-standard incidence rate. Here as and I denoted the suspected and infected individuals. NNI denotes the unknown force of infection represented by a neural network. First, I generate data from this SIR model with human behavior changing mechanisms. Also, you can call it media impact. I generate data from this model and use these UDs to learn the model. And from the left graph, we can see that the UDs learn the model well and also predict well. Okay, let's go back to the UDs. It's obviously that this universal differential equations has many parameters. I think most of us have done the model calibration. Because we often estimate parameters in our classical transmission models to fit the case data or accumulated the case data. Even with few parameters, it's a model calibration it will be a very difficult work. But look at this universal differential equations. It has so many parameters. Intuitively, we think that it won't work because a differential equation has so many parameters to be estimated. But the success behind the UDs has a long history. Now I will try to briefly introduce the story behind the universal differential equations. Before the universal differential equations, let's go back to 2018. In this year, neural differential equations was born, and neural differential equations are initial value problems with the following form. The right hand side is totally a neural network, and this neural network receiving UT as input, and we can see that this neural differential equation is still a black box, and no human knowledge is incorporated. And neural differential equations was proposed by Chen Tianqi. He is in Toronto University. And it can regard it as a special case of universal differential equations. And why the neural differential equations was born? Because at that time in 2018, deep neural network architecture ASNet is very powerful. ASNet has a following form. It is very powerful in image classification. So researchers are searching ways to make the ASNet more powerful. A natural idea is that is continued depth or infinitely deep ASNet possible. And they found that this ASNet can be regarded as a special kind of numerical screens of differential equations. So one direction is that why not redesign the sequential neural networks based on numerical screens of differential equations? And from this direction, many papers were published. And another, I want to mention another revolutionary idea is that training deep neural network as an optimal control problem, which extends the idea of back propagation in differential programming to include adjoint sensitive analysis. And with this revolutionary idea, it really opens the ideas of deep learning neural network. And neural differential equations are indeed powerful. It can approximate any sufficient regular differential equations. However, it is defined without direct incorporation of known mechanisms. It needs big data and difficult to interpret and weak generalization. That means that if we directly use the neural differential equations in our the transmission model, it can fit the data very well, but it won't predict well. So universal differential equations was born. It directly used the mechanism models simultaneously, which means that it incorporates AI and human knowledge. UDEs are proved to be methods with good generalization and can be trained with less demo data. Moreover, actually, UDEs are beyond the extension of deep neural networks or neural differential equations, because the success behind the UDEs are high performance differential programming and scientific computation, especially high performance adjoint sensitive analysis. And these UDEs can be more general and abstract with these abstract evolution equations, where L is some kind of abstract evolution operators, such as elliptic non-local diffusion in transmission models. Also, these universal approximators can be other universal approximators, such as decision trees or Chebyshev expansion or Fourier expansion. Or if you want to handle the uncertainty, you can use a Gaussian process. And with this idea, we can extend the universal ordinary differential equations to universal partial differential equations and delayed differential equations, or Phillips system, or impulsive differential equations, or stochastic differential equations. Also, even you can also extend the ideas to fractional differential equations. Now I will give three applications. The first one is estimating a time-value reproduction number. Here I represent the effective reproduction number RT as a neural network, and use the following simple transmission model to fit the data. test this method in the Ontario's first wave COVID-19 case data. If the right picture depicts the first wave data and the data fitting, it can be seen that it fit very well. Also, and the right graph shows the effective reproduction number. I also compare the deep learning method with 3 other very common method in reproduction number estimation, with the EPI-estimate method and EPI-N2 method, and also state space method. From this picture, we can see that deep learning method has a good performance with fewer data sources. And this table is more clear. Deep learning method, it only needs the case data and the infection period data sources, and the accuracy is very strong, and also it's very smooth. The smooth means that it fits the data well, but also has some ability to predict. And for state space and EPI-estimate method, they are very quick, but the accuracy cannot be ensured. For EPI-N2 method, it is very accurate. Also, the training speed is very slow, but it needs many data sources. It needs case data, generation data, and incubation period or delay distributions. Okay, the second application is about learning the unknown human behavior changing mechanisms. My purpose here is to use the data of Ontario to fit the following universal differential equations, where the NN denotes the neural networks to learn the human behavior change mechanisms, and H denotes the accumulated cases. And from the left graph, we can see that UD is fits the data very well. After we train the neural network, we use a symbolic regression to find the simplest equation to fit the neural network, and the equation and the human behavior change function found here is kind of saturated function. And the third application is use the universal differential equations to solve optimal epidemic control problem. We consider the following optimal control problem in both form, where the function f, g, and phi are assumed to be continuously differentiable by representing the optimal function ut as a neural network. We can solve the optimal control problem by training a neural network. First, I test this very simple example because this example has analytic solution, and from the left graph shows the control function, and the right shows the state function. I compare deep learning method with direct allocation method. From this graph, we can show that the deep neural network, the UDs can solve the optimal control problem. And the second example is used in this epidemic control problem, where you can regard it as a home quality. And this the left picture shows that universal differential equations method find a better optimal control functions compared with the direct allocation method. Also, this table compare with deep learning method with 3 other famous method in solving optimal control problem. The first one is direct method. is just discrete the original problem and transcript it into a nonlinear programming problem. And for indirect method, it use some theory and make this optimal control problem to a 2-point boundary value problem. And Hamilton, Jacobian, and Bell method use dynamic programming to solve the optimal control problem. And the deep learning method just transcript the optimal control problem to a parameter optimization method. The 3 other methods are all trajectory optimization, which means that they use the traditional famous operation research optimizers. And a deep learning method are parameter optimization problem, which means that it can use the modern optimization method, which developed in recent years, such as Adam, or also many differential programming architectures. And for direct method is a discrete then optimization method. Indirect method are optimization and then discrete method. Dynamic program method are also discrete then optimization method. But for the deep learning method, is very flexible. It can DTO and OTD. Also, it is very is powerful. Its powerfulness is in the large scale optimization problem, because deep neural networks can show some breadth of dimensionality. The disadvantages are very obvious. Because it is theoretically underexplored, it requires much more researches. So it haven't been attract much attention. And for the last part, I want to give some insights why couple of differential equations and deep neural networks works. We all know that the engine of deep learning theory is the optimization theory and operational research. So here, I think the theoretic engine should be the theoretical engine for couple of differential equations and deep neural networks should be optimization theory in infinitely dimensional space. From the perspective of optimization theory in infinite dimensional space, I mean that the variational analysis or optimization with PDE, a partial differential equations constraint, or optimal control, it seems that the couple of differential equations and deep learning is not a new story. Many mature theory and algorithms are there, and many SAM papers works on it. But from the perspective of deep learning, it seems that the optimization theory in infinitely dimensional space, it seems to be a new story, and we still have a long way to go to put this new engine on deep learning, more theory and more practice. And for the practical engine, I think is that the success behind it should be the scientific machine learning computation. The success behind machine learning is that everything can and should be auto-differentiable. So the success behind it should be the differential programming. I mean that high performance tensor computation and auto differentiation and high performance quadrature. With this base, we can develop some high performance numerical methods to solve the traditional differential equations, such as finite element or some optimization and optimal control or optimal transport, and also some Bayesian inference, such as harmonic Monte Carlo or stochastic gradient legend dynamics. And with these three basement, we can develop more advanced methods. I mean, the scientific computational methods and the machine learning or probabilistic machine learning method. And by comparing these two, we can develop we can couple the differential equations and deep learning. We have such as universal differential equations. And all this framework, it has a deterministic perspective and a probabilistic perspective. I mean that from the stochastic, we also have tensor computation, also has a stochastic perspective conjecture and stochastic differentiation. And this is a paper associated with this topic. Okay, thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Pengfei, for the great presentation. And I have a couple of questions before